Hey guys, this is Pari from FTC team 7477 Super 7, and today we're going to be talking about sensors, and we're going to be starting an intro to sensors in our programming series. And today we're going to be talking specifically about the distance sensor. And the distance sensor is a very useful sensor in FTC as it outputs your distance, its distance from certain objects that it sees, in a plethora of units, so you can use that information for many things. One thing to note about the distance sensor is that it is a time of flight sensor, which means the way it works is it sends a laser beam, and based on the time it takes a laser beam to go and hit a target and come back to the sensor, that's the way it measures the distance. So basically, the fact that you are sending a beam out can make it kind of inconsistent when you're trying to pinpoint a very narrow item. So when you're trying to strafe and find something that's very small, it can be a bit inconsistent, but for the most part, it's a very good sensor to use for helping robot relocalization and things like that. So let's get straight into how to initialize it. So again, we're going to be working in our base class in our init hardware function that we've already created. And it's very similar to any other piece of hardware where you initialize the sensor and you just use hardware map.get. And this time, of course, it's going to be distance sensor.class, and then this name is whatever you use in your configuration. So this now initializes my distance sensor. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize the distance sensor variable up here so I can use it globally. And boom, now I have my distance sensor initialized. So now I have the actual distance sensor attributed to something. So if I wanted to create a function to get a distance from an object, I could just call public, let's say double get distance, and I would return the distance sensor. The way we get the distance is the dot get distance object, and then we'll have the option to select from distance units. So as you can see, there are multiple different distance units. You get centimeters, inches, millimeters, meters. So we're just going to do for now centimeters. It's usually the most applicable in terms of using the distance sensors. Inches, you can also use whatever you would like. But now that I have this function, I can go to my teleop program and just call get distance or double x equals get distance, and this will now store my distance sensor's value. I can add a telemetry line that says distance and x, and this code would now output the distance from whatever you're sensing. Now, the one really big application that you would want to use distance sensors for, other than like relocalizing your robot, maybe in autonomous and stuff, is in teleop. Oftentimes, teams automate their intake systems for objects through distance sensors. So, for example, in center stage, if you have a claw or something, you can use distance sensors in the claw to automate that intaking. You can also, maybe for example, power play last year where teams used distance sensors on cones to automatically close the claw. So assume for now, for the sake of this, I'm gonna assume that we have a claw operated by one servo with a distance sensor in it, and we want to close the claw when a distance sensor senses a pixel in the claw. So the way we're gonna do that is, remember, we're gonna have to first initialize the servo. So let's just call it servo claw and set it to claw, just defined as a normal servo. And in here, what we're going to do now is basically we're constantly scanning the distance now. So we'll do it in a while op mode is active loop. We can put in a statement and say if distance sensor dot get distance in centimeters is less than 10. This means if there's something less than 10 centimeters away from that distance sensor, we're going to close the claw. Say that's the closed position. So this would automate that process completely, and distance sensors are very useful in doing automated tasks like these in teleop and autonomous. That is the intro to distance sensors, and I hope you guys find use in using these sensors, and thank you for watching.